Okay, I think here we are. Welcome everybody. This is Insight Policing Livestream Uncut. It's May 27th, I believe, and we are joined today by Chief Harvey Baker of University Park, Maryland. And we're going to be talking about effective policing and really what it takes. Chief Baker has had a long career in law enforcement and has a lot to share and to offer. And just as a reminder, my name is Dr. Megan Price. I run the Center for Applied Insight Conflict Resolution and teach Insight Policing, which is conflict resolution for law enforcement. We're also joined by Andre Brooks and Mike Delaney, who are longtime officers and also Insight Policing co-trainers. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So Chief Baker, I'd love to just start out by asking you, tell us a little bit about your experience in law enforcement and what brought you to law enforcement.
Sure. So as a youngster, I always had a strong sense of right and wrong. And as I got older, I went to the United States Air Force. And one of my classes I took out in California was taught by a detective from Oakland, California. And he was just a guy who was full of knowledge, really smart, and he had a really strong impression on me. So once I got in the military, I became a police officer in Annapolis City Police. That's where I started my career. From there, I lateraled over to the Maryland National Capital Park Police, where I spent 27 years and retired as the assistant chief. And then I became the chief at the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission. And from there, I went to the University Park Police, where I'm the chief now. So I started my career in municipal policing. It looks like I'm going to end my career in municipal policing. So that's a snapshot of my career. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And so what brought you was a strong sense of right and wrong. And so what have you found is important in effective policing? I mean, through that long career and all your different roles, you must have seen so many different things. So can you tell us a little bit about what makes policing effective and any stories you might want to share?
Sure. Let me just back up a little bit. I had a strong sense of right and wrong, but I always wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. I've always been very helpful. And so that drove me into law enforcement. In my career, I think the biggest decider on effective policing is culture, the organizational culture, because it says a lot of what the officer will do on the road, what the officer does between him and her squad mates, and just the level of policing and the quality of policing. I think it's highly influenced by the organizational culture. So I think that's important, but also I think the relationship between the residents or the citizens and the police department, that's critical as well. So those two factors to me, as a chief administrative officer of a police department, if you can influence a positive functional culture in your agency, then you're going to have a contented or a satisfied community in which you police. So that's very important. And you do that through training, you do that through role modeling, and you do that through trying to convert your organization into a learning agency. Mm-hmm. So people, not only yourself, but everybody's looking up for opportunities to learn something different, and change from what used to be and build on a culture that's been successful, even though it might not fit the model of policing that you need right now. You build on that. You don't just throw the bathwater out with the baby. You modify it and you keep growing and challenging yourself.
Mm-hmm. So culture is huge. And I guess, what brought you to landing on culture as something that you really need to cultivate? And then what challenges have you faced in developing a learning culture?
Well, for whatever reason, wherever I was promoted up in rank, be it sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and chief, I was almost always like the outsider. I had a different perspective. And so that by virtue of my position, I seemed to always challenge the culture because I had questions. I always ask questions. Why are we doing it this way? If it didn't work, why we keep doing it this way? Why can't we change it? And so, when I was in Montgomery County Division of the Park Police as lieutenant, in our command staff meetings, they call me the question man, because I always has questions. Because sometimes I think in law enforcement, because we're comfortable doing it a certain way, and it's kind of work that way, we don't change it. We just continue to do that. And I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble. You know, you got to have somebody on the team that's looking and said, this could be done better. And you have somebody on the team that's kind of scanning the country on what the best practices are, and then bringing them back and talking about it. Maybe you can't apply it just like, say, New Orleans is applying it, but you can apply it to make it fit your organization. I've done that at Maryland National Capital Park Police. I did that at WSSC, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, and I'm doing that here at UNC Park. So I think it's important, and it starts with the leader. It starts with the leader. I mean, I can't ask the culture to change if I'm doing things that I was doing 20 years ago. You know, so it starts with the leader. You got to walk that walk. You know, you got to walk that talk. You know what I'm saying. So.
Hey, Chief Baker, how you doing, man?
So well, how you doing, Mike?
Good. I know our paths have crossed and through your multiple agencies, and you know when I was with Prince George's County as well. But you know, with you being with University Park, is it how many officers do you have now?
We're full staff at 8, but we're not fully staffed. But that's our company. It's a small agency, you know. And one of the things I'll say about University Park, they had a long-time chief, had been here for 16 years. He did a fantastic job, but the style of policing was probably more like in the mid, like 2010 or something like that. Not where we are right now. So when I go to an agency, the first thing I do is a SWOT analysis, and that's what I did here. I, made a determination of some things we need to change in like the first 90 days. So.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is 2010 policing versus what policing needs to be in 2021? Well,
back in 2010, people were using the tagline, "This is community policing." So if they were assigned somewhere where it's community activity, they thought that was community policing. Well, that's not really community policing. The community policing is really engaging the community, not just sitting in your car at a community event. It's actually doing some things. You know, when you see, like we had this program adding community value. So when we saw youngsters in the community engaged in productive activities, we would stop them, talk to them, and then we'd give them a voucher to the Bowie baseball game. And so sometimes the youngsters, like for example, one time there was a group from DC that were cleaning out we have this little creek in the little town. So they were, I guess they had some kind of activity. They had to come down and clean the creek out. So they were cleaning that out. And I came up with about 10 young men. And so I was a police officer. They looked at me like, okay, what did we do? And I said, "You didn't do anything." And so then I said, "You guys hot?" They said, "Yeah, it's really hot out here." So we started talking a little bit, and I gave each of them a voucher for the baseball game. And they were like really excited about that, you know. I mean, but that's like a non-traditional interaction with law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Typically, you know, they were expecting something else, you know, but they got what they, me trying to find out a little bit about them and then giving them a voucher so they can remember the interaction with me. So I think that's more what we're trying to do currently in policing, you know, not just the officers. The other thing is this: years ago in 2010, you might have 1 or 2 officers. These officers are assigned as community policing officers, you know, and then everybody else, just give it to them. But it can't be that way. It has to be an organization-wide effort, you know, and just like the culture change, any culture change initiative in the police department has to be organizational-wide, not just the line officers, not just the managers. It has to be everybody involved.
That brings me to my next question. I'm glad you brought that up. What are your biggest hurdles in managing a diverse department like University Park?
Well, when I first got here, the biggest challenge is overcome some of the older attitudes and the culture. You know, we did it this way, or I came from this agency and it worked for me well there. And you know, when you go into an agency like WSSC or University Park, and most of the people there are retirees, everybody was somebody somewhere else. And so I try to acknowledge that, and I affirm that. But now we're one, so we have to work together to get, you know, to the direction we want to go with the agency. And so what I try to do is meet with people. You know, I try to meet them where they are, you know, and then I try to have a regular staff meetings so I can hear from them as well. But sometimes people want to change, but they need help. You know, they don't want to just be talked down to. They want to be listened to, and then they want to see what's in it for them. And so I try to do that as well as a leader, you know. And so we did some of that here at University Park. Now we've had some turnover here too, because some officers, you know, they felt like, hey, you know, why all the change now? Right. Especially if they're making good money and it's not a lot of crime, so that's a good thing, you know. So why change? Well, I believe in efficient and effective law enforcement service. We can only do that by if we're looking at ourselves, evaluating ourselves, and trying to be the best we possibly can be.
And you know, I really that goes across the board, whether it's a small department or a larger department. You have to adapt. And, like you said, if people aren't with the change and they can't adapt to, to what's needed, then it's time to move on. And unfortunately, we have a lot of officers in different agencies that don't want to move on. And sometimes that's where the problem lies.
It's true. It's true. It's a real struggle, and I try not, I don't take it personal, but some of the officers take it personal, but I always tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm going to be the calm, quiet person I always have been. But this is how we have to move now at this point. And sometimes, like you said, people get on board, sometimes they don't, and they leave. And we try to find, that's a challenge right now because a lot of officers are leaving law enforcement, they're leaving, but I think the goal is when you get them here, it's like fishing. You get the rod, you get the right bait, and you put it out there. And once you get them, you got to keep them, right? You got to keep them on the hook and bring them in and treat them well. And so I try to do that. I think it's very important. So.
And I love what you said that, the culture within your department where you listen to your officers and you engage them and you have conversations and you figure out what's going on with them and what they need and how to support them, mirrors how the department interfaces with the community. Because when the community is heard and attended to and, feels as though they're in partnership with police, then policing can be that much stronger and that much more effective.
That's true. The agencies I've been with, we've had the good fortune, we had time because it takes, have time. Now, if you're in a larger agency and you're very call driven, you may not have that time because you're running call from call to call. With Park and Planning Commission, the police there, we had time. University Park, we have time. Like yesterday, typically on a Wednesday, I do a walking Wednesday. So we have 7 wards. And each ward, on every Wednesday, me and the officer assigned to that ward, we just walk. And we talk to people. We let them know in advance. So the people come out and they have questions. We're doing more listening than talking, writing notes, because they're like, okay, this is great. This is what I'm concerned about, And we have a blog. They communicate that way. And we have a website. But those walking in those wards is very personal. And people come out and they talk about it. And then some of the kids, they want to follow us along. So we're meeting them at a very young age. And it's a positive interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, y'all still have some of those vouchers to pass out now?
I just requested some more, so we're gonna get some more really quick.
Okay.
We're gonna walk through your community and get a few.
Definitely, come on down. I'm trying to get like 12,000 steps a day.
Good for you. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So, Chief Baker, you have had your officers all trained in insight policing, which is what we train. And so tell us a little bit about what motivated you to have your department trained in insight policing and why might it be an important skill set for them?
Okay, from the first time that it was introduced to me at the Municipal Chiefs Association meeting by you, Dr. Price, I was excited about it. I was listening and we had a lot going on in that meeting, and they kind of interrupted and you had your presentation. It was quick. But I followed up with you, and then once I started reading more about it, I said, if we can get it here at University Park, it's going to be some must required training for everybody who's here, because it's an excellent conflict resolution model that slows things down. It really makes the officer think. It's what is it? Noticing, verifying, and then the curious questions. I've seen it work. Because I get a lot of complaints sometimes. And people are upset. Like, for example, there was a guy banging on the door because our town hall is closed due to COVID-19. And I was trying to work. I heard this banging. So I go down there and this guy's upset. So, I said, do you want to come? He said, no. And he's fired up and, kind of yelling. So I'm like, well, I'm noticing. So I'm like, what are you upset about? Mm-hmm. And he told me, what the officer did to him. It was, racial and all this kind of stuff. He had been, he was being racially biased stopped or something like that, he said. And I listened to him for a long time. And I said, well, the officer is an African-American, just like you. And the guy kept going. So I let him say some more things. So then I really started asking some questions. So I said, listen, did the officer curse at you? He said, no. Did the officer put their hands on you? He said, no. I said, was the officer rude to you? He said, no. I said, okay, I understand. I said, but what's your complaint? And he started slowing down. And he kind of, once he slowed himself down, he told me, he said, man, I got to get out here. I'm going to get some coffee. And then he left. But he still filed a complaint. But he was really fired up. But I think the model worked because I took the time to listen to him. Mm-hmm. And then I started verifying some of the things he was saying. Then I started asking those questions. And once I started asking the questions, that's what kind of took the wind out of him, because he had all those things in his mind because he was upset. He was angry. And long story short, he was embarrassed. He had been embarrassed of the traffic stop because his daughter saw it. Mm-hmm. And so he felt embarrassed. And I got to the bottom of that during that conversation. He still filed a complaint, and the complaint was unfounded. And, but, I think the model worked in that instance. It worked very well, but it takes time. Sometimes the officers, we get in a hurry. Here comes somebody else complaining or whatever. We just want to blow them off. But in my role and how I am at this stage of my life, it's important for me to listen to people, and watch their body language. That's part of this too, their voice inflections, because that tells you a lot, and I think his issue was so far removed from that traffic stop, but he brought it to the traffic stop. It's just like us. Sometimes we get in a situation as a police officer and we're not at our best and we make a mistake and there's a complaint filed against us. Well, that started that morning when we had some kind of disagreement with our spouse or some other stressor that was on our mind, and we weren't able to separate the two. So now we come to work, we're not at our best, and things happen. And I think that's happened with him. So I tried to give him some grace by listening to him, and then I started asking the questions. And so it kind of worked out. Again, he did file a complaint, but it went nowhere because I brought him in and I told him he was really calm. I said, listen, before we start, I hear anything else, because we talk a lot, and I kind of share some of my personal story because he's very proud of his daughters, and I'm proud of my daughters too, and I'm sure Mike is too if he has a daughter, and Andrea is as well. So I showed him the body-worn camera. When he watched the body-worn camera, he just said, wow, this wasn't bad, huh? That didn't happen. I said, well, no, it didn't. And that was it. So resolved it. So I'm an advocate. I tell everybody about inside policing. I told my peers at the municipal chiefs about it because I've seen it work on a call from one of our sergeants, who was an experienced sergeant, and it was a situation where parents had been separated, and they have the son who had a visitation with the father, and the father dropped him off. He's a teenager, and the mother didn't like how the handoff went, so she called us, and they were all up. She was upset, son was upset, but the sergeant went there, and he was really calm and listened to him, and he really listened to both of them, and he talked to the mother. She went in, but he got the son to calm down, and when the son calmed down, the mother calmed down. And before you know it, we left. Everything worked out perfectly. But it's because he was active listening. And then he started asking those questions. He said, now your father's gone, so he's out of here. He asked a lot of different questions, and he made really good sense of it, So it worked out.
It's amazing that when we do ask those questions, we help people think critically, where when we're angry or upset or riled up, we stop using our minds very well, right? We're just so impassioned by our emotions and our feelings. And when an officer gives us the opportunity to think about where we're coming from, then it mellows us out. We get to check in on why we are feeling the way we're feeling, and why complaining or arguing or being amped is helping us out. So we get that shift or a new angle on things that can really help to calm. So that's amazing that it's been helpful for your people, for you too.
No, it really has. Again, it's like required training. When we hire somebody, that's one of the first discussions we have. You got to go through inside policing. This conflict resolution is a big part of policing. It really is, especially in a small town, because in a small town environment, the residents, they have a high expectation of the police department. They have a very high expectation. I just got a text message a moment ago, hey, this bus is speeding again, our chief, and they expect you to respond, because you're their police department. So any kind of skills that we can put in our toolbox that help us to better understand and then respond, we're going to be better for it. So it's important.
Nice. Well, we appreciate you, and we appreciate all that you're doing for University Park and the leadership that you're showing, and also, of course, drawing on inside policing. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time. Andre and Mike, did you have anything else to ask the chief?
Jerry.
Chief, I'd just like to say thank you once again. I thanked you before, and I will always thank you for hiring me in my current position at WSSC, and I really appreciate that. I know we go back a long ways, and, through PG County and Maryland Park, and so once again, man, I like, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that you're over at University Park doing your thing, and it seems like you're heading in the right direction with everybody. Community policing and your views on insight policing and conflict deconfliction and things like that are right on point, man. And I wish that a lot of other managers of different departments, big and small, would actually take the time like you did to see what it was really about and incorporate that into their departments. I think they would see how useful it is, and you're a model for doing that. So we appreciate that. I know Dr. Price and Mike do as well. So I'd just like to say thank you, man.
Oh, thank you, Andre. You're very welcome.
And real quick, I'll just add, because Andre just took 10 minutes in his final statement, but we had a couple of, we offer coaching sessions for the students that have taken insight policing. And we've had a couple of your officers, maybe 3 have gone through, and you can see the difference, because they needed to get a better grasp of it. And after the coaching, you could tell that it really made a difference with them. So I just want to, thank you for allowing them to go through it again, the coaching aspect of that. But like Andre said, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. And if we can get more people to have that same mindset that you have in management roles, then we'll be a better country, So thanks again, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Man, I'm humbled by your kind words. Thank you. I'm just trying to do the best I can. So thank you very much for having me.
Great. All right. Thank you again. And thanks everybody for watching. Tune in next week, Thursdays at 4, and like the channel, subscribe, share the video. All right.